planet in the solar system with liquid water oceans existing on its surface. But about 3.6 billion years ago, Mars may have also had such oceans. Imagine, at that time, Mars resembled an ideal resort. With beaches stretching to the horizon, waves continuously crashing onto the brick-red sandy shores. And as sunset fell, a mysterious blue hue appeared. The notion that Mars once had liquid water oceans is not new, it has existed for decades. Over the years, NASA and scientific organizations have worked hard to find evidence of liquid water in Mars' past. And they have found traces of water from ancient times. Now, China has joined in as their exploration rover discovered an ancient beach on the red planet. So, what is this story really like? Let's explore together.
Water is a precious resource on Earth, an indispensable element for nurturing life.
In the solar system, only Earth has abundant liquid water oceans. Earth's surface is 70% covered by water, and even in our bodies, water makes up 70%. But that is Earth, our home planet. When looking into space, right next to us is a cold, dry desert world with a very thin atmosphere. That is Mars, a planet where only dust, sand dunes, and gravel are seen. But about 3.8 billion years ago, Mars once had a thick atmosphere that kept the planet warm. And a vast ocean existed, covering most of its hemisphere. Curiosity rover in China. Is the ancient freshwater lake bed and likely nurtured microbial life in the distant past. Historically, evidence of liquid water oceans on Mars has mainly come from NASA.
But recently, China's TIANWEN-1 mission also made a breakthrough discovery by finding the most convincing evidence of an ancient ocean on the red planet. TIANWEN-1 is the first interplanetary mission conducted by China's space agency,
aimed at sending a lander, an orbiter, and a rover to explore Mars. The spacecraft was launched from Earth on March 27, 2020, aboard a Long March 5 rocket. After 7 months of travel and following Mars orbit, on February 10, 2021, the spacecraft successfully decelerated and entered orbit around the red planet. Over the next 3 months, it studied the landing site from orbit. Finally, on May 14, 2021, the spacecraft successfully landed on the surface, making China the third country after the US and the Soviet Union to achieve a soft landing on Mars. Upon landing, it sent the first sharp images back to Earth. The first image was of the lander with the ramp deployed, providing a path down for the rover. Here is a selfie of Zhurong next to the lander. You might be curious about who took this photo, right?
The truth is, the rover cleverly dropped a camera on the surface,
allowing the camera to capture both the lander and the rover in one perfect shot. Beautiful images were not the main goal of this trip.
The core objective of the expedition was to investigate the geological features of Mars,
searching for signs of water, both present and past.
Meanwhile, the TIANWEN-1 orbiter was tasked with investigating the space environment in the red planet's atmosphere.
To search for signs of water, the Zhurong rover chose to land in an area called Utopia Planitia Basin.
This is that location. It lies at 50 degrees north, 118 degrees east, with a diameter of about 3,300 kilometers.
This is the largest basin on Mars and also the largest in the solar system. Utopia was selected as a landing site very early in NASA's Viking 2 program in 1976. Recently, interest in Utopia was revived when in 2016, NASA discovered a subsurface ice sheet beneath the basin. with a water volume equivalent to that of Lake Superior, a freshwater lake in North America with the world's largest surface area. Scientists have long believed that Utopia's current flat basin was once an ancient lake bed, where liquid water once flowed and may have nurtured microbial life. The steep cliff near where Zhurong landed might be its former coastline. From its landing in May 2021 to May 2022, the Zhurong rover traveled across terrain at the foot of steep rock outcrops, at the edge of the plain. It believed this was once a coastline, which has since dried up.
Along the 1.9 kilometers route, the rover used ground-penetrating radar, scanning deep beneath the surface. The ground-penetrating radar on Zhurong is an excellent tool, capable of scanning 100 meters deep beneath the Martian surface.
Surface, alongside the Perseverance rover. In this test, Zhurong's ground-penetrating radar scanned at a depth of 80 meters and then listened for the reflected waves. By listening to these reflected waves, Zhurong could detect subsurface features it encountered, such as boundaries between rock layers and sediments. As a result, at depths from 10 to 35 meters below the surface, the radar encountered sand layers several meters thick. These sand layers appeared to run parallel to the rock outcrops, and they rose toward the outcrops with a slope of about 15 degrees. Yes, this is a typical feature of beaches on Earth. This made scientists extremely happy and excited, indicating that where the rover was standing was the long-lost beach on Mars, with shallow sand dunes preserved intact below more than 10 meters depth, gently sloping due to being washed by ocean waves. There's no doubt, this is evidence of an ocean that existed millions of years ago on the red planet. Rivers flowing to the sea carried sediments. Eventually ocean waves created gently sloping beaches along rock outcrops, a familiar scene to us. From what we know about water on Mars, scientists have created a hypothetical map of Mars from about 3.6 billion years ago.
Different from the Mars we typically see today, Mars back then was covered by an ocean over nearly half of the planet's northern hemisphere.
Darker blue colors indicate ocean depth, with areas thought to be up to 1 mile deep, approximately 1.6 kilometers. This ocean was called Deuteronolis. The orange star above is the landing site of the Zhurong rover in China's Tianwen-1 mission. And the yellow star below is the landing site of NASA's Perseverance rover. This discovery of the coastline opened up another exciting discovery about the potential for hunting ancient life on Mars, because we're there. How and when life began on Earth is something no one knows for sure, but one widely accepted scenario is that the first life on our planet began in the ocean. Through hydrothermal vents on the deep seafloor, then through evolution, they gradually moved onto land. If a similar process occurred on Mars, then coastlines are excellent locations to search for evidence of ancient life.
But unfortunately, the Tianwen-1 mission ended early.
In May 2022, the rover was put into hibernation mode to avoid dust storms and the Martian winter. However, after that hibernation, it failed to wake up when the sun appeared. The command team received no response from the rover. Orbital observations also showed it hasn't moved position since then. Perhaps, dust storms accumulated dust on the solar panels, affecting its power system. T lost all hope, NASA. Recently, NASA stated that during Perseverance's survey along the northern shore of Neredva Vallis, the dried-up remains of an ancient river that once flowed into Jezero crater, they found an interesting arrowhead-shaped rock. Analysis of the rock showed it contains certain special minerals only created when flowing water is present.
Particularly the spots appearing on the rock, resembling spots from chemical reactions that microorganisms might use to generate energy.
These are perhaps the clearest evidence of life that humans have ever found on Mars. However, determining whether Mars ever hosted ancient life will ultimately depend on bringing Martian samples back to Earth. Currently, both the US and China are deploying sample return missions.
NASA's Perseverance rover has now collected approximately over 30 sealed sample tubes.
They are carefully selected and could contain solid evidence of life on the red planet. These samples are currently waiting to be brought back to Earth.
But the problem is NASA's sample return mission is very complex. The sample return mission is US-led with cooperation from the European Space Agency.
It is a complex transfer process with high risk. The treasure collected by Perseverance will be retrieved using a robotic arm to transfer it into a Mars ascent vehicle. Then, launched into orbit for a spacecraft to return to Earth.
Such a multi-step process is very expensive.
The cost exceeds $11 billion and the timeline has been extended until 2040. That is something the US cannot accept. Therefore, it has been cancelled. Perhaps NASA must reconsider, devise a new plan, simpler and less expensive. Meanwhile, on the other side, China's TIANWEN-3 mission is a more streamlined effort.
China's TIANWEN-3 mission is expected to launch in 2028
and return samples from Mars to Earth in 2031.
TIANWEN-3 consists.
The first carries a lander equipped with a drill, robotic arm, and reconnaissance helicopter. The second will launch an orbiter for the return to Earth. Using a grab-and-go method, the lander will collect samples and directly transfer them to the ascent vehicle.
After about 2 months on Mars, collecting approximately 500 grams of samples, the rocket booster will be launched to rendezvous with the spacecraft in orbit.
Subsequently,
the spacecraft will bring the samples back to Earth. China is currently considering landing sites for the TIANWEN-3.
Most are concentrated in the dry sea, Planitia, a frigid region north of the equator, and the Utopia, Planitia, the largest basin and station on Mars. These landing sites for the lander promise significant scientific exploration potential. The search for life on Mars will ultimately answer our age-old question about extraterrestrial life and our place in the universe. The answer will soon be revealed as the spacecraft take off. Boston or China. Let's wait and see.
Thank you for watching today's video to the end. Don't forget to subscribe to the Odyssey channel and turn on notifications to catch other exciting and interesting.
For now, goodbye and see you again.